to the dialogue. My name is Prince Apollo. Welcome to the big show. It's time to analyze the big events of the week, and the panelists give them context. Dr. Jared Wanzala is in the studio, Comrade Daniel Rugarama in the studio, and we've been joined by Madam Winnie Fred Mugambwa, and we'll be looking at interesting events which happened this week, looking at the cabinet retreat, the first of its kind, convening in Kyankwanzi National Leadership Institute for 7 days, focusing on the shortfalls in service delivery from government and looking at how they can plug the gaps. And we'll be asking whether we should have positive expectations from that retreat, but also looking at other major events. Doing that, we'll also be looking at what is happening in the neighborhood in Kenya, where President William Ruto dissolved almost the entire cabinet. And he says he did that after reflection and listening keenly to what the people of Kenya are saying. And this comes after weeks of protests against his administration. But again, another particular incident I want to look at is the president emphasizing corruption as the major problem to service delivery in this country, but at the same time, the president named a gentleman who has a questionable reputation to head a newly created anti-corruption unit. My name is Prince Apollo. I'm happy to have you as an audience this morning, but let me introduce my panel. Dr. Jared Wanzala, I am always pleased to have you on the big show.
Thank you, Apollo. Good morning, and good morning to my colleagues here in the studio. And of course, not forgetting our viewers. It's always a pleasure having you every weekend. Special greetings to my United Republic of Chirinya members. We greet you. And thank you for being part of the program.
Wow. Happy to have you on the show.
Happy to be here.
Winfred, I'm happy to have you back again. And Winfred is a human rights activist, but also the executive director for Rights for Her, Uganda. Thank you for being part of us.
Thank you so much, Apollo. I'm happy to be here again. I'm Winfred Mugambwa. I'm an ecofeminist, and I'm a concerned citizen of Uganda. I'm here not because I'm an executive director of Rights for Her. I'm here as a citizen of Uganda. I'm happy to share this space with these gentlemen, and I'm happy to be hosted here. I thank the management of Soul TV. Thanks to the audience.
Thank you. Thank you too. Comrade Rugarama is a scholar and a Pan-Africanist. Always pleased to have you on the big show.
Good morning, comrade. Good morning to my sister here and brother Gerard. But above all, good morning to you, our beautiful audience. We don't take you for granted. It is always a pleasure coming here. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the dialogue begins, but you can be part of this debate. Go to our SMS platform, send in your comments and observations. We'll be looking at those comments later in the program. Dr. Jared Wanzala, a cabinet retreat in Kyankwanzi, 7 days reflecting on service delivery. Corruption is the major issue. And of course, what do you expect from Kyankwanzi?
Thank you very much, Apollo, for that. It is good to be here to deliberate on that, and also to see the president taking the ministers and the permanent secretaries to Kyankwanzi. But I would like to differ a bit. It's not the first retreat that has taken place in Kyankwanzi. I remember before COVID, I think that it's COVID that changed, but they used to go almost every year and go and reflect. The only difference this time is that all the permanent secretaries are there, and also the focus on corruption. I think the head of state is good at reading intelligence messages. He knows that this country can organize around corruption and threaten his seat, the top seat of the presidency. And I think he has also learned the mood that people out there are very, very angry, and therefore he's trying, apart from the fact that he has arrested some of them, maybe he also wants to try to, you know, to use retooling methods. Because usually in project management, we go for retreats as a point of reflection to see where you have come from, what you are doing now, what is working well and what is not working well, and you design strategies to adapt the project or the program to the prevailing circumstances in order to achieve the results. So, so basically, what the president is doing is something that he did, but maybe this time I would assume that he's more serious because corruption is the talk of town. And for me, coming from the academic and civil society perspective, we need actually to broaden this topic here. But just saying corruption, 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 corruption. I think we need to unpack this corruption here, because reflecting on what's going on in our society, yes, theft of public funds, which is, you know, which is so outrageous, is a form of corruption. But there are other areas we are not talking about in terms of corruption, because when you tell the permanent secretaries, the ministers corruption, they will take it in form of money. But there are things to do with the recruitment in the public service, for instance. Why would a multi-ethnic country like this one have a certain group of people running almost all agencies? Well, if
Who are those?
just leave me to make my submission. You know you live here, so don't pretend.
I don't know.
Hey, why would you go in an entity and then some languages become official languages when there are people of other ethnic set in the same organization? So you would imagine if another person applied to join that entity, where do they pass? Where they pass to get a job? So I think the conversation on corruption need to move from theft of public resources to recruitment into public service, nepotism, favoritism, call it, you know, regionalism. Of course, there are also other entities which I know where some people say that after all these ones are doing like this, let us also do this. But at the end of the day, that kind of behavior is destructive. And it is reflected in the way service delivery is done in institutions. If I recruited only my relatives in the organization, possibly I wouldn't care about results, because it becomes so hard to reprimand your uncle, your cousin, you know. This is happening. At a political level, it is happening. Today, if you want money for coffee, overnight you become a champion of processing coffee, you must be related to someone. If you want to promote investments in Uganda, you must relate to someone. So I think as a state, we need to dismantle whatever is happening. Theft, all forms of corruption, because if you go back to the 1986 program of President Museveni, one of the key things he promised to tackle was corruption. And in his paper that he presented to the ministers and permanent secretaries in Kyankwanzi, he gave a history. Actually, I laughed when he mentioned that his dad used to be in possession of drugs, of treating cows, yet he was not a government official. So he came saying there was a time when people would share anything from food, logistics of soldiers. So he said the first thing he did when he came from the bush was to tame that. Now, if you had that positive thinking before, what has happened now? Are you overwhelmed? I also want to see, apart from the retreat, I want to see institutions charged with fighting corruption working independently.
Okay.
The Inspectorate of Government needs to have power not to consult the head of state before acting on people. I was so disappointed with this cooperatives report, for instance. It was written long ago. The Honorable Paka and his committee produced the report, I think, 1.5 years ago. And then we only saw action after the parliament exhibition, and that's when we moved to arrest a few. And when they were arrested, the focus, I think, I would imagine, was not even first on that, because the first thing that the president was interested in was the issue of budget corruption. I think that one touched him a wrong way. Then, of course, people now would ask, if you are fighting because of budget corruption, then why can't you move on to the cooperatives? And by the way, we want the cooperative investigations to go deeper.
Okay.
Yes, because people are many. We are not satisfied that very few have gone to jail. We want others.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Gerard Werewansala. And I pick your point. You're saying, as Cabinet and President Museveni's government focus on corruption, it should not be tackled from the point of only bribery or theft of public funds, but
Absolutely.
in a broader way, to look at nepotism and inequalities that are happening elsewhere. Thank you so much. We'll go deep into that later. Let me first go to Comrade Rugama, because he was somehow rubbed the wrong way when you talked about, you broadened the issue.
But he's not the suspect.
He has exonerated me.
Comrade Rugama, the first question is, before we dig deeper, generally looking at a retreat like this, should we expect positive results in terms of service delivery after this retreat?
The central theme behind this retreat, what I have gathered is to reflect deeply. Was it called introspection?
Yeah, introspection.
What I know for a fact is that, and in that introspection, the element of corruption is at the forefront. And slightly before they went in that retreat, we have had a number of MPs and ministers involved in corrupt-related issues. Others are in Ruzira. Some are still being invited to police to record statements. So it was under the atmosphere of the population demanding accountability from the government as to why all this is going on. So carrying corruption as the central theme of the introspection, I think from the point of government, probably is a score. Is a score in the sense that it gives confidence. Whether that confidence is false or not is another thing. To the general public, that at least the government is trying to do something about it. And but what is of critical importance probably, and I think the audience is very much alive to the fact that corruption has not been dealt with the way it should have been dealt with, because my brother Dr. Wanzara was talking about one of the items in the 10-point program. It was actually number 7, which talked about fighting corruption in all its forms. And the question now from the public should be that after 38, 40 years, should we be running to Kyankwanzi to introspect about a matter that should have been handled, a matter which actually our senior brother, the late Magufuli, handled in just one term? Probably that should be the question. And when you invited me to this conversation, I was a bit hesitant because Apollo, you know, I'm NRM. And when you gave me this topic, I was like, now what does Apollo want to do to me? Because, and you know me, the problem, the difficulty I have is pretending over things.
Yeah, true.
I don't like that. I will tell you, for instance, that my NRM, my movement, where I'm a member and an active one at that, has got one of its biggest challenges right now is fighting corruption. It appears as if the leadership leverages on corruption in a different form. Because patronage is also another form of corruption. When you have a situation whereby questionable characters are being brought back into Mainford government, it raises issues as to whether really we are committed as a government to fighting corruption.
Oh, yeah.
We even we reach a point of kind of making people forget that we have got permanent secretaries who are in Rizera, and they were tried and convicted by this very leadership, the courts and all the machinery. We are forgetting that we have got people like the Kazindas who used to be accounting officers still in Rizera. We are forgetting that we have got a number of cows, you know, because the cow is down there or an accountant at the district level, we don't see that. We even forget and start questioning as to the multiple agencies that we have, the police, the IGG, or the this and that, corruption, these units being created. We begin to think that probably, and this is very unfortunate, that probably these units that are formed every other day are not intended to fight corruption after all. How come it is on the increase? And that is very sad. That's very unfortunate, because I think that if the institutions, and indeed my colleague mentioned it here, if the institutions were independently working, they were fully functional, we wouldn't have to have so many to combat corruption-related tendencies. But you see, at the same time, the structure of our leadership, even this decentralization, because NRM is a broad-based government. But when you look at the concept of decentralization, it would be very difficult, for instance, according to decentralization, for my brother Gerard and myself here to switch districts, because they will tell you the element of decentralization is that when you are emanating from a particular district, then the children, the sons and the daughters of that particular district are the ones to work in that particular district. But that is not the concept of NRM. The broad-basedness of NRM leadership is that we are free labor, and it even contravenes, even when we move a little, we elevate the debate to the level of the East African Community Treaty, the free movement of labor. If we are restricting it internally in the district here, that we must employ the sons and daughters of a particular district in that very district, how are we going to promote the concept that we can have the Kenyans move to Uganda and Ugandans move to Tanzania in search of employment? Anyhow, the retreat is not the first of its kind. Actually, it is supposed to be an and this time around, what is even complicating NRM position with or without this retreat on the fight against corruption is where you experience people who have been at the helm of fighting corruption and part and parcel of this leadership themselves questioning the ability, the willingness of the leadership to fight corruption, i.e., when you get senior citizen, Dr. Miriam Matembe, when you read her book, when you look at her talks on TVs and what have you, you look at people who were originally in the bush, like the retired Major John Kazora. You read his book, and he's telling you about the forms of corruption within our system. Miriam Matembe, as of recent, and the one who was holding the
former Minister of Integrity,
ethics and integrity, and she's talking the way she's talking. We get an uphill task. Some people will even ask you, as I conclude on this, that now if Miriam Matembe can say this about your NRM, if the whole John Kazora retired, the one who was in the thick of this whole thing can say this about your NRM, you, Rugarama, who is you?
Okay, thank you so much. I understand now the uphill task you face in discussing a matter like this.
I can feel his pain.
Sure.
But from what you said, Comrade Rugalama, what I picked is that, well, retreat or no retreat, there are other big issues to tackle if at all anything positive is going to come from that retreat. Not only just a retreat, there are other structural issues that must be worked out in order to have positives from what is going on. Thank you so much, Comrade, and we'll dig deeper into those issues. Winnie, I'm now really yearning to hear from you after Comrade admitting that really this is a thorny issue to discuss, especially if you are NRM. But now I think you are in a pole position to tell us what exactly do you think will come out of that retreat? Anything positive or not?
Thank you so much. I want to add on what my colleagues have said. The question is, what should we expect? Should it be positive? All the things depend on where one is standing. Personally, I want to broaden the question to what should we expect? Would it have been like that? Why? And personally, that answer would be, I expect a beautiful transcript, a beautiful script from the people there, which will be having, because when you read at it and see the motive of them going for a retreat, it's like answering to the call of the citizen. So I expect a beautiful script having solutions to the public concerns, like they'll have issues around good governance, issues around solutions to public inefficient public services, solutions around corruption, as they've said. But should I expect those, that whatever is going to be there, should I expect it from the people there as a citizen? And how did we get where we are? It is one thing the government, the president should have looked at that. How did we get where we are? And how long has this country rotted to this extent? You would look at the script NRM had in 1986 when they came into government, and you look at the 10-point program. They've mentioned my colleagues have mentioned the
actually the 10 points program were adopted even before they came.
Yes,
I
am coming there. When they adopted it in 1986, and it was, you've talked about it, that they had it in the bush. They internalized about it. They strategized. I believe people even, they made reforms before 1986. But this is a retreat that is going to take 7 days to solve a rotten system, which has not rotted for 1, 2 years, 3 years. Yes? You would see when they went to the bush, issues like security, issues around economic and social instabilities were the issues. And they are the issues as the citizens have. They are the issues that are pressing us now. And you're telling me people who have contributed to the system which is rotten, is the system. My colleague has talked about the system. Yes, government, the system as the government, institution as the government, there are issues around there. Yes, the leadership, we are having issues around the leadership. Yes, but they are the people who have gone to the retreat. They have gone.
Who else would have gone?
I'm getting there. They are the people who have gone for a retreat to have answers to people's concerns. For me, I would think that if this retreat was it should have been a stakeholders strategic retreat, having community leaders there, yes, having government officials there as they are now, have CSO representation, have opposition representation, have public sector representation, because all that, when we talk about corruption, it is broad. So the representation must have been a
bit broader.
It would have been broader for us to have real solutions, people-centered solutions, solutions that speak to the real problem. I want to take us back to, I love referring, I want to take us back to because now the solutions we are getting, they are going to bring on table. Let's go back to the 10-point program. We mostly single out the 7-point, but let's look at, personally I would think the government has been in leadership for 38 years, but they have failed to achieve 80% of those points. When we look at the point number 1, is it point number 1? Which talks about, I think it's democracy. Yes, it talks about democracy. Why I'm talking about, I'm going to single out like 6. That is why I say they've failed to achieve 50%. When we talk about democracy, what does democracy mean to a citizen? What does it mean to us? Does it only mean around we're having elections? Are the elections we're having fair enough that we say that, okay, this government has restored democracy in this country? Well, let's talk about restoration of security. It is one of the points they are talking about there. Is there peace and security? Is there peace and security? No. And around there is still there is corruption within. When we want to talk, there is a point that talks about consolidation of national unity. Yes, within the country, that point, has it worked out? We look at a point where they said we are going to restore. Is it restoring social services and rehabilitation around in war-affected areas? We look at the war-affected areas. So again, and then you say, okay, we are now going to talk about, we are going as a government officials to find solutions to this. So as much as I might have expectation of that beautiful paper, the beautiful solutions, that is not what us the citizen want. We want people-centered solutions. We want to be involved. Let them involve other sectors. They might not come and gather all the communities, all the citizens to have answer, but the representation, right now the representation at the retreat is not fair enough. It doesn't speak to us the citizen. It doesn't speak to the solution. It is only that, and to me I would say, I am expecting a strategy on how best they are going to, first of all, keep themselves in power as they continue with the corruption going on. Because you would see, my brother here mentioned about the person who was elected. It is you mentioned the person who was elected. We
appointed.
All know, appointed by the president. We all know the history about the person, yes, and it is one of the things that is going to be talked about, and already they've appointed someone. So it's all about, to me, I feel they've only gone to strategize.
My sister information, there is a point where Saul turned into a Paul, probably.
In the Bible.
In the Bible. Probably it is going to be replicated here. The person appointed in anti-corruption unit of URA, probably he has turned from a Saul, he is now a Paul. who knows?
Yeah.
I thank God you've mentioned probably. Yes, for us citizens, we don't want to see those probably. Are you telling me that we even don't have young people who can take that position? Why are we working on probabilities? What if the dice of the probability will be the negative and the person act otherwise? Let's give chance to other people who can do that. Yes, I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong. Yes, we have those examples in the Bible. We have you could look at maybe there's a story around David. I've forgotten it. That maybe that is what they are doing. But again, me as a citizen, because where we are now, the system is rotten. Maybe also what influenced the president to have this retreat was what is happening in our neighborhood. And for them, and that is why I'm insisting, they have gone to re-strategize and see. Because now let's say that, like I've told you, the problem comes from the institution as the government, and still the problem comes from the leadership. Should we expect some leaders? Me, I would expect, if I'm asked, what would you expect?
What do you expect?
I would expect those people coming from there and feel, since they are concerned about the citizen, have some of them step down and say that, do you know what? For fair, because there is need to do investigations.
That's what you would wish to see.
Yes.
But what do you expect after they return from Kyankwanzi?
I expect the usual thing, but just them strategizing on how best they can play the game.
2026.
2026, because now remember 2026 is near. They are strategizing. How can we change? How can we like massage everything so that the population can see? How can we go back and try and see that infrastructures are built? How can we go back and see that hospitals there is medication? How can we go back and see that and start talking about and show that corruption is being handled? But remember, our problem, we are having people in positions who are appointed not because of merit, but because they are loyal to either the leader in the opposition. Not only when we are talking about leadership, most times people feel that we are talking about the president. No. Everyone in leadership, people are appointing people not because of merit, but because people are loyal to them. That is why I say that we are expecting just the usual thing. A written document, having those
resolutions,
and they will be actionable. When you read them, you will see that these are actionable points. But who is going to implement?
Who is going to implement is the question now Winfred Mugamba puts to the people who organized the 7-day retreat in Kyankwanzi. You can be part of this discussion right now. You can send in your comments and observations. What are your expectations from the Kyankwanzi retreat? Dr. Gerard Wanzada, you had Comrade Rugarama, actually an NRM staunch supporter, also, fighting to tackle this issue. But well, he speaks to some glimmer of hope that possibly something can come out. I don't know.
Sometimes I think in Uganda we joke a lot. Even when we need to be very serious, we seem to joke. If I look at the entire government infrastructure, it needs serious overhaul for it to be efficient and effective. I don't believe, in my own wisdom, that I would conduct a good cabinet meeting when I have 81 people, for instance, in cabinet. That I have gone to meet my cabinet, and instead it is a rally, like a political rally, because people are too many. I think one of the sharpest governments we have ever had in terms of service delivery was immediate post-independence Uganda. When the leaders were very young, they were young, fresh, they educated, and then there was a lean cabinet, and then the parliament was about 81 people. And if you look at the plans, for those who read, and what was achieved in that period before, again, the politics messed us up, I think we need to reflect. Two, there are programs that are eating money in this administration. Luero compensation of veterans for 38 years. Can't it end? Can't it end? Is it, if I'm doing the same thing for 38 years, every election we are going to compensate the Luero triangle and so forth. Who is taking that money? Who are those people who keep on coming back? If we reflected and we phased out that and we put money into proper service delivery in those areas, could it work? We are looking at the current form of decentralization, the way it is. Comrade Rugarama talked about it. Problems. If you create, the more we have created smaller districts, some areas, you even find it hard to get A6 people to run, to be recruited in the police, or even just parish chief, diploma. Some districts don't have. So at the end of the day, they run to NASA to graduate here. At NASA Road, Nkuruma Road in town, get degrees, and you find them in offices in local government. Yet before, we used to have quality primary school teachers. Someone comes from Hoima and is teaching in Imbali, and people are blending very well and getting the best. We used to have people from Ankole, lives in Imbali and gives excellent services. For me, that's the kind of country that I would want. You also agree that there are structural issues? There are structural issues. In fact, some of them we may even need a referendum. We have looked at the issues of course, I'm with her, she can even maybe confront me, but the issues of women emancipation, for instance. We are talking about women representation. We used to conduct the annual scorecard, and we used to analyze the content of what women MPs
how these women MPs
when they're in parliament in a year. Exactly, when they're in parliament in a year, what do they focus on? Are they issues relating to women? We found that zero. You find that most of them actually are absent, or you cannot even analyze what their content was all about. At the end of the day, we thought having maybe every district with a representative is a waste of resources. You rather empower them to go to school, empower them economically, so they're able to compete for constituencies, and have some special few seats. Like, I would appreciate the Tanzanian model where you have like 20 women nominated by political parties and are representing women issues in parliament. But if you calculate a salary of each woman MP,
146 women.
Yes, times 12 months for 146 women a year, it can be an enormous job in hard to reach areas where the access to water is hard. Women walk miles and miles with jerry cans on their backs to go and fetch water. For me, that would be more impactful than having a huge parliament with the women representatives who don't represent women at all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jeda. That's a very critical issue. Possibly we have to interrogate further as we go forward. But it is Madame Winfred who painted a picture of no hope, no positive expectation from the retreat. But again, Comrade Bugalaman and you, Dr. Jida, talked about this retreat having been convened in reflection of what is happening in Kenya, in the neighborhood and in the region. Don't you think, Dr. Gerard, that in itself can impart some reflection in the hearts of the people who are in Kyankwanzi, and they understand that possibly they should do something good to avoid what is happening in the neighborhood?
Representative democracy presupposes that we, all the 46 million people, cannot go and sit in that parliament. But it is our house. You get it? It is our parliament. It is a people's house. So we pick from ourselves a few people to go there and represent us. But what has always happened, especially in our young democracies, is the assumption that when we go into those offices, we become the owners. That is why you saw the Afrobarometer report last week, we were discussing it here, where now citizens have lost trust in their leadership. The report said, you recall, for reflection, that only 15% of Ugandans trust their member of parliament, where the 85%, they are on their own. So, what is happening in Kenya is a point of reflection. Actually, it's only a fool who cannot take them serious. I've seen some unserious people on media saying, oh, this cannot happen here, or this and that. Let me tell the public, politics is very dynamic. We had Omar el-Bashir here in the neighborhood in Sudan. We had Bashir in the Sudan, and he organized an election. He had probably 97%.
Okay, comrade, before let me hear from Comrade Ugarama quickly. Intervene and talk about what is happening in Kenya. Can't that one actually, tickle the people in Kyankwanzi to do something differently, to do things differently?
The truth of the matter is that Kenya and Uganda, the two countries have got dynamically different histories, especially gearing up to independence. When you look at thereafter, after the attainment of the so-called independence of Kenya and that one of Uganda, we are looking at Kenya, which came through largely Mau Mau, which was almost a people's protracted guerrilla warfare. We are looking at Uganda with some pockets really towards the independence of civil disobedience. So at the end of the day, when you look at what is happening now in Kenya, you can largely say, given their history, that they are now progressively owning their country. Largely, they are owning their country. In Uganda, because of, especially with the present leadership, because of the guerrilla, it's a few people who took up the guerrilla war and came into and formed government. We have, the country has always held them up as the saviors. And because of that, what is happening in Kenya, the Kenyans, because they know this is our government, we are the ones who put the government in place, and whereas in Uganda it has largely been that the rebels, the hitherto rebels, now turned into government, are the saviors.
Okay.
It's a bit different, but
my question is,
the hook.
Can't that the happenings in Kenya influence the minds of the people who are in Kyankwanzi
Exactly, yes.
to do something positive?
That is the hook. Potentially, anything is possible, especially when it comes to politics in any country. You would even be shocked that at any one given time there can be, for instance, a revolution in the United States of America. In the same way, the present leadership is alive to the fact that people can change anytime. And the president, being the general president, Yoweri Museveni, who has got his ears on the ground and for the last 40 years has managed to captured and has managed to maintain power, cannot overlook what is happening in Kenya.
He cannot overlook what is happening in Kenya, but can other members who are in Kyankwanzi also have that hindsight and possibly come back and do something better in delivering service?
I hope so. I hope so. And that is a very big hope.
All right. Dr. Msele, we cut you short, but you're making a critical point on not ignoring what is happening in Kenya, that it can't be ignored.
Yeah, you cannot ignore one. Whereas Comrade Ugarama rightly says there are differences in the two countries, but if you look at, say, the population, what the Kenyans are calling the Gen Zs and the millennials, data speaks. The recent results show that 50.6% of Ugandans are below 17. 22.7% are youth, below 30. Between 18 and 30. And then the elderly who are actually ruling us
just 5%.
are 5% of the population. So it means that the bulk of Ugandans are 40 and below. So what does it mean? The challenges in Kenya and Uganda are very similar. Right. Men have gone to school, access to jobs is a problem, they are hungry, they're having the high cost of living. Men have migrated. When they finish studying, they don't go to the village. And even if they go to the village, in some areas, agriculture has collapsed, cannot absorb them. I'll give an example. I come from a mountainous area, Namisindwa, where land is fragmented. Okay? We cannot keep large herds of cows. Agriculture, we used to have matoke, but on adoption of these new technologies, most of the matoke has reduced in terms of quantities, but the population is increasing and land is being fragmented. So if I'm extending agricultural services, would I consider a similar thinking like someone who is in Gulu with a lot of land? Probably I would think about something different for the Elgon region, and which can attract these young people to go into agriculture. So the circumstance today, the revolt in Kenya has been aided by technology. I have seen figures of Uganda's access to technology are increasing. We're now at about 47%. People can use the internet, and most of them are young people. So if they have access, then it is very easy for them to mobilize around and revolt. But what you asked me, whether they can pick something from that, I know President Museveni is one of the brightest leaders. You cannot be foolish and you keep power for all that time. He knows. But whether
can
other people...
that from Kyankwanzi, President Museveni, being what you said, drop some people on cabinet and make changes in cabinet and what, and even the PSCs, what can we expect?
No, I'm not expecting him to drop, and maybe permanent secretaries I cannot predict, because for about 3 years I've not seen changes in the permanent secretaries, but it's also critical of some, like accounting officers of parliament. I've seen him comment about it. What is the accounting officer doing about this? So probably some changes may take place, but as regards to cabinet, I was speaking it here. When a leader now sits in cabinet, say, "Oh, my grandson, oh, my daughter," what do you have to say? Hey, daddy, you know, you see, the whole thing becomes very, very casual. So
it is a judge and a
Muzuku relationship. So my daughter, my grandson, hey, oh, when I first came here, so the talk becomes very casual, and then at the end of the day, you find all the 81 people, each with a convoy, 2 cars, security, and all of them feasting. I told you, I'm always angry with the newspapers when cabinet is appointed. Then they say, Buganda eats big, or Teso eats big. Because we have developed a culture that when people are given offices of responsibility, then they have been given eating. And they also take it literally that we have been given to eat. So,
all right, and those are the questions and issues emerging as the cabinet, a week-long cabinet retreat evolves in Kyankwanzi. We'll be going for a break in just 3 minutes, but I asked my producer to run that number on the screen. We want to get the comments and observations from our viewers, what they must expect from Kyankwanzi retreat. Quickly, in these 3 minutes, Madam Winnie, from what you've heard, members in Kyankwanzi reflecting on what is happening in the neighborhood, can we see a semblance of change in service delivery? Can we see the president, whom Dr. Gerard described as somebody who is sharp and careful, can we see some members of cabinet being dropped, changes made here and there? What do you expect?
I believe they are seeing what and reflecting on what is happening in Kenya, and I believe that is why, given what is happening in Kenya and the force now from the citizen in Uganda, those are 2 things that pushed them to go for the retreat. And expecting, as much as I would expect changes in the government, I would expect they are going to be strategic changes. They are there for Eritrea to strategically see how, like how I said, they are there to see how they can strategically play their game, who is going to be put where, who is going to be dropped. And some will come, if there are going to be changes, someone will come back knowing that I'm not going to get back there, and this is the reason. And later someone will be removed from one sector, and you will see after some time appointed in the other. So it is just going to be a vicious cycle. Yeah, just a game, yes. Because when it's all about the problem, we said is there is a governance problem. But is the government right now ready to embrace and appreciate what comes with good governance, rule of law? Are they ready to do that? We look at participation and inclusion with this diverse community in Uganda. Is the government ready to embrace that? So there is still a problem, even when they come back and we see those changes. Yes, they might be coming back with pretense because they need 2026 is near. We need now to gain confidence from the citizen. As we expect, as they also come back, I would say that citizens, we need to be on the watch because they are there to strategize. It's like right now, it's like me having very many rats in my house, and then I have my meat in a saucepan which I cooked, and because I'm going to work, I say no, let me leave my meat with this dog to keep it. Yes, that is the game the government, the president is playing.
Thank you so much, Winfred Mugambwa. Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel Rugalama and Dr. Jared Wadihe. Thank you so much, our audience. We'll go for a quick break, but when we return, we dig deep into the expectations from the Kyankwanzi retreat. And from the panelists here, looks like the expectations are very few, but what do you think? You who is watching, what do you think? We go for a break. The dialogue will be back in or after a short while. Don't go away. Welcome from the break. This is the dialogue. My name is Prince Apollo, and the panel is taking us through the events which are happening in Kyankwanzi in a 7-day retreat by cabinet, President Museveni's cabinet, but also coming in from Kyankwanzi. The focus is on fighting corruption, and in his address, President Museveni highlighted that corruption now stands to be the major challenge to service delivery. And I see a tweet here, and President Museveni emphasizes this, saying, "We are now coming in directly to restore the NRA heritage. The young people and the victims of corruption have a chance to lead this effort. We urge the judiciary to support us by placing corruption, especially embezzlement, in the category of offenses that are not considered for bail. With a correct, revolutionary and objective approach, we should easily defeat corruption." Now,
there is no offense which is not categorized for bail. All offenses are bailable.
Oh, but here the president is saying you should consider the offense related to corruption alongside murder, aggravated rape,
defilement, and
all be considered for no bail.
Let them make amendments.
So he's proposing amendments in the...
Yes, make amendments.
That is what we have to interrogate. You say you don't expect much, but here the president now tables very critical proposals on how to amend actually a constitutional amendment. These are constitutional amendments.
Let me tell you the problem up or there. That's where the problem. Actually, on that element alone is what I want to talk about. The element of bail or no bail on some of these offenses. It's not the first time that the president has talked about not granting bail to people who are involved or suspected to be involved in corruption. And that's not how the judiciary works. The justice system in Uganda is that you are innocent until proven guilty. You are not going to, you say you can be what we would call maybe being judicious, being able as a presiding magistrate, presiding judge, to use your wisdom and deny
bail
or grant bail. After it's discretion, they say it's a constitutional right. But at the end of the day, they subject you to court processes. And if you don't merit, you don't get. Is it not a constitutional right? For instance, isn't Katanga's wife, More Katanga, entitled to bail? Has she gotten it? Why? She has simply not met the requirements. So in the same way, instead of making, that's my take for me, in the same way, instead of appearing from the president as if it is, it would look like an executive interference in the activities of the judiciary, I think we should empower courts, the judicial system, to be able to exercise discretion with caution. That I'm not going to grant you bail simply because bail is a constitutional right. But coming on hard on the judiciary and saying, put this in the category of people who are not supposed to get
like aggravated
bail.
rape,
My
murder,
friend,
what?
unless it has not happened to you, we are not going to suppose, we are not actually supposed to treat our justice system in that ad hoc manner. Whether it has been said by the president, with all due respect, or not, let us stick to what the law says.
And Comrade Lugalama is a lawyer and an advocate to that matter. So if he speaks about this issue, I think he's speaking from an informed point of view, and I like that. Dr. Jared Weranzala, from these statements from the president, again, you think there won't be constitutional amendments or tabled after this retreat or other changes? And coming in, I also want to take you to another critical issue that was raised by the president in his address while opening that session in Kyankwanzi. He talked about Parliament having that liberty to determine their emoluments, their salaries and privileges. That he saw it in the beginning that it would actually result into corruption, but he didn't block it. He just let it go, waiting for them to commit mistakes, and then he will possibly reverse it in future. Can't we expect that sometime, if they come back, he will, together with the cabinet, look at how to reverse that and tame the powers of Parliament to determine their privileges?
Actually, when I saw him talking that, I laughed because at that time, during the CA, the country was, everyone was so hopeful, was full of hope, thinking everything in the past, we're going to set it behind and we continue. So there was also an assumption that Parliament in the law has to do its job independently. And for them, how they defined it independently meant that no other body would pay them, because by determining their pay, then they would influence them to maybe in legislation, in decisions they take. But also this was a mistake, because it was only assumed that these people would be honest. But over time, but over time, human behavior changes. That is why you cannot establish a bank to loan money and then your hope is on people's behavior. No, that's why people put some bunch of things like security, you have to leave a car, you have to leave a plot, because human behavior changes. So, we talked about structural governance problems we have in Uganda. That is one of them. That why should people be the ones to determine their own pay? Okay? Their own pay. And it is prone to abuse. That's why today, people can just put a huge budget that this is for the Parliamentary Commission. When you ask them what is for Parliamentary Commission, what is it for? Then they say welfare. What does welfare entail? A commission has 5 people. You have about 70 people. So 70 people, if you have put there 18 billion, say, for welfare in a year, are they going to eat food or fuel worth that amount of money. So these are all structural governance issues we really need to overhaul in this country. Otherwise, we the citizens are looking at leaders as predators. There is no symbiotic relationship at all, just predatory behavior that you have people who retire, they don't go home, they are always on the payroll. Presidential advisors, they don't meet him. You have presidential stands in every office in the town. In Kololo, where in the middle of the town, that's in presidential assistants. You have, you know, so many people holding offices, but you can't see what they're actually supposed to do. So for me,
do you hope
let's
see reforms tabled?
Now, by the way, we have been crying about reforms. Unfortunately, I saw a statement yesterday that's from the electoral side when the chairperson Electoral Commission was saying it's now too late to implement any to bring any electoral reforms. Well, I agree with him to a certain extent, because we behave, it's the politicians who are supposed to bring these reforms. The ministry, Honorable Norbert Mao promised us almost 3 years ago. We have not seen even a single reform coming. He told us about constitutional review. We have not seen anything taking place. So, but apart from the electoral reforms, we need a lot of reforms. But if we are going to bring amendments to the effect that we remove bail, well, I wouldn't support, because I have been around for some time. I remember when I was in university, we jumped on the American war on terrorism. Okay? Uganda was the first country in Africa here to operationalize the US war on terrorism legally by passing the anti-terrorism law. The first victim was Honorable Winnie Byanyima, who was very vibrant in the parliament in criticizing parliament. She was charged under the anti-terrorism law. A pistol was planted at her residence outside the home. She was jailed at Jinja Road. It took her father to come from Mbarara to come and make noise in Kampala before she was released. So we have to be careful when we say
no bail.
Yeah, because we can weaponize this for political reasons, and then the next day you are the one who is a victim. So I think if we leave it to the discretion of courts, because usually I see people say he's a Ugandan of good standing, he has a permanent place of abode, you know, his health is not, those are usually the things they present. But if the corrupt is a young 40-year-old with no history of, why can't you investigate and try him quickly? You know, we need to have efficiency in terms of investigations, such that we don't keep people in court for years.
I agree with you there, because in majority of the cases, actually, what we have is that we align people in court even before we have made 20% of the investigations. The ability to prosecute in court is almost nil. And that is why you find that in majority of the cases that are in court, either they are dismissed for want of prosecution. Do you know what it means to dismiss a matter for want of prosecution? I mean, you are simply not ready to take this matter to court. And the court is saying, please, when you get ready, you come back, otherwise don't waste our time. And, but also the other element which Dr. Wanzara talked about, and I agree with him. There is this element of when before you enter a system, you think you can manage everything. My senior brother, the late, may his soul rest in eternal peace, Professor Apollo, the one time Nsabambi, used to talk about when he was still in Makerere University. He used to talk about a living wage.
Mr. Rugubrias.
Yes. When he was brought in government, he said, now you're the prime minister. Please search and provide that living wage. He left without even attempting anything. So in the same way, this when you are given an opportunity, sometimes probably we can give Chairman Norbert Mao a little bit of time to see some of these beautiful proposals. He said, at least for him, he's not into the 38 years. He's just less than 2 years. let's wait for him.
He has to catch up first.
Wow. Before you come in, Winnie, let me read out these messages, and hopefully get some more because our number will again run on the screen. Send in your comments. Thanks, Mr. Apollo, for the show. I think we have never benefited from Kyankwanzi retreats. The more they gather, the more jebyongera okutunyigiriza. Muonge Shafiq from Nabingo. Okay, quite interesting there. Mr. Apollo and the panel, thanks for the show. It's been a while. NRM government is like our body system, consisting of the following: respiratory system, cardiovascular system, digestive system, endocrine system, urinary system, reproductive system. If any of these systems fail, my friend, chances of survival are very minimal. Corruption is in the NRM is like our respiratory system. So if the president tries to fight corruption, that will be the end of his regime, because his government survives on corruption, and that's how they have managed to stay in power for this long. Just like Winnie said, if you have failed to fight it in over 38 years, how would you expect to generate solutions in just 7 days? These guys have gone to Kyankwanzi to pass time. I don't expect anything serious from there. There was overwhelming evidence about the recent Mabati, and he kept fooling us that he was going to take action. Instead, he just rewarded most of the corrupt guys again, because he's calculating on them for 2026. Let's just do what we can, because I have no faith in the government to fight corruption in Uganda. And I hope this is Major Otim Joel. Let me check. Oh yeah, he is Major Otim Joel. Thank you so much. Those are critical.
From my republic.
Yeah, from the Republic of Chirinya. Thank you. I like that. Those are opinions coming in from our viewers. Most of these opinions are okay. Messages I see here, they appreciate the show and the panel. Well, thank you so much for appreciating, but let me wait for other messages to come in. We'll be looking at those messages in the next 10 minutes. Winnie,
there's something I wanted.
You've heard from the comment from the president, and I will not go back. He says they are going to revive the NRA thing, and he shows commitment in now fighting corruption. Can we expect a cabinet reshuffle? Can we expect him now to touch parliament that has been under scrutiny for a very long time, and now he speaks about their powers to determine their privileges? Do you think all this is in vain?
Sometimes I ask myself, when I read such comments or I hear them, whether the president, after uttering it out and
even proposing out, no bail from corruption,
whether he goes back and also puts on the screen and listens to himself, because he's mocking us, the citizens.
Really?
First of all, he's talking about corruption. That is points. When we talk, they say they came to eliminate corruption and misuse of power. So what is in misuse of power? If we just look at the small things, yes, already our president is misusing the power. And as the citizens are suffering, first of all, they told us they were in parliament when they said here's how many nurses, doctors, were they 20, 40? A very big number. The housemaids at his place, very, very many.
A huge staff.
A huge staff. Yes, because now that is misuse of power. So if he's willing to fight corruption, let him, that's point 7, it is not only corruption. Let him try and eliminate corruption and misuse of power. And he has given examples. He has come out to give examples. But if really the president feels for the country he's leading, I believe he would have stood up and said, the budget is passing. This is the amount of money they've said that is going to State House. Please, no. Let's reduce it to this.
It is close to $1 trillion now.
Yes.
Around 900 and something billions.
He would have started from there. Yes, my president would have started from there. Other than first pointing on Okay, now the statement is talking about judiciary. And in this Uganda, where there is he selectively picks, they selectively pick who should be held accountable of corruption, who should be taken in prison.
Oh.
We have had and seen very many people in cabinet, very many people in cabinet.
Selective prosecution?
Yes, that is what is in Uganda. So, and then you say that they should remove the bail. I don't support it. I go with what my brothers have said here. But again, for me to say that the president is now so passionate about the last time, what was just to remind me, the last birthday he celebrated was when?
Himself?
He was how old?
79.
79. It was this year.
This year it will be 80.
Okay. If last year he celebrated a birthday at 79, meaning 20 years back he was 50. Yes. I don't want to go into the last 30, but I want just to take us back between 22 to 10 to 20 years. And he didn't have that passion when he still had the energy. And right now in his resting
Does
age...
it require energy or authority?
You people, even if there is authority can be abused, it also requires. That is why they advise us to do, even if, because he believes in the Bible. The Bible says to do, there is a, I've forgotten the real words, but there is a way it advises someone. There are some things you do in your youthful age.
Yeah,
yes, that is where I'm coming from. And now, he says he's coming with that passion. To me as a citizen, I ask myself, where is my president getting the energies? What is pushing him to be so so focused on this? Yes?
To leave a legacy, possibly.
And before 38, he wants to leave a legacy at 40. No, at the time right now, the issue is, if he came out, let him leave a legacy by starting to cut his own budget. That is one. Two, by changing the way he recruits. If he doesn't change the way he recruits, appoints people, we are not getting anything. If it starts with him, before he points on the judiciary, he's even ready to separate power, like influencing the legislature. And is he ready to do that? So I think until he starts touching in himself and touching, reflecting, yes,
on his decisions.
His decision around what he has to first change around him and his actions, him pointing to try and change the other side, will face a lot of obstacles.
Thank you. And Dr. Gerard, on that particular matter of the president reflecting on his actions and decisions, we talked about actually creating another anti-corruption unit to oversee operations of URA, and appointing a gentleman who has a not so good
just
record.
a convicted fellow.
And actually others have come out to defend it, that it is the send or set a thief to catch a thief phenomenon. I don't know. What do you make from the president's actions, creating an anti-corruption body alongside other bodies in the State House? You remember the health monitoring unit in the State House, the state anti-corruption unit, the investment unit, monitoring unit in State House, the land unit in State House, and now this one. Talk about his decisions and actions vis-a-vis his now renewed fight and termination fight.
Of course, I wouldn't far
and
from
appointments.
I wouldn't be far from what she said. I think certain decisions are kind of a mockery and are very, very difficult for you to explain, to defend, especially if you are speaking for the government. For instance, we all know that when we are recruiting people or where we work, the reference checks, the purpose of reference checks is to see your past record. If you had a criminal record, because we have character recommenders and then professional recommenders. So I wouldn't hire a convicted thief in my organization, I wouldn't. But if a whole fountain of honor finds it fit to hire a person with a...
Ruganama talks about a Paul turned, a Saul turned Paul.
I read the Bible, but let's not mix the Bible with this. This is we have rules that are governing public service in Uganda today. So for me, I condemn it in the strongest terms possible, because it will reflect again on the services that we get from such an institution. Now, you asked me about creating another unit. I was privileged in 2021 to be part of a team that did a study for the Inspectorate of Government and other anti-corruption agencies. We are doing a comparison with other countries, how corruption is fought. But we found that in most of these developing countries, the mistake that we make is by duplicating. We think that if you create the inspectorate, you have, of course, PPDA to look at, you have, yes, then you have auditor generals, you have so many, you have police and corruption court, state house and corruption unit, then investor protection unit, name them. We think that we are fighting corruption. But the most critical things in the fight against corruption are three. One, mindset change of a country. When you see countries like Israel putting conditions that if you do, after your senior 6, if you don't go for military service, national service for at least a year, you'll not go to a public university, you'll not get a job in government, because they want to remove that thinking, your predatory thinking, that when you are there, you are going to steal. Instead, yet the country is yours. Mindset change of the two. Involvement of people, the knowledge of people. Now you have seen in Kenya, now the young people are saying politicians should stop fundraising in churches because people steal money, they go to their villages and pretend to be donating to the church. That is fueling corruption, even here, you know, even here. Why should stolen money go to church? So, mindset that people are able to point out and say, you a thief, you are our MP, but you will not come back to the village until the next election, remain there. So, involvement of the people to report corruption is critical. Then the other one is the political will. That the government of the day is willing to implement the laws of the country and hold people accountable. Now, if I look at our system, I think for us, because the challenge is we have had almost a permanent president, okay? So if this president has become an authority or an institution, and therefore everyone wants to hear what has Mzee said before they go and take action. It's a challenge, I think, but as President Museveni moves towards retirement, of course, I don't believe that he has the energy. If you are running a marathon, you can't tell him that after running 25 kilometers, when you're on the 25th, then you have more energy again. No. I don't believe that.
You can reserve it.
No. What he can do... What he can do for us is one, to ensure that he puts the necessary forms in order, because I usually see that presidents who are retiring do take decisive decisions for their legacy. So if he can do that, I can tell you we are right behind him.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Jared Wansala. He's a lecturer at Uganda Management Institute and a public policy researcher. Here we are. Thanks for the show. Actually, the Kyankwanzi meeting is just preemptory. Sorry for that. Deviation from important issues that are eating the country. These people have gone to Kyankwanzi for a retreat and service awards, maybe. Dr. Ian from Bugweri. Somebody says this is diversionary in one word or another. And thank you. That is the opinion. I am by names Waswa Hussein from Zambia. First of all, it should be noticed that the president has been saying that he will fight corruption, but let's expect a positive response after Kyankwanzi retreat. Did you get that clearly? Anyway, thank you so much, Waswa Hussein, for that comment. He says, Mr. Apollo, Madam Winfred should appreciate the fight against corruption and should not focus on the timing, how old the president is. Maybe what I hear her say that is important is how the fight is selective, but also the creation of various units to do the monitoring, which at the end weaken the big bodies statutorily, but also cause economic burden to us. Akampumuza Abel Keru. Thank you so much for that comment. We are actually stepping into our last lap or final lap. Thanks for the show, Mr. Apollo. Our president is good, but this retreat is like a cat crusade. Praying for God for more rats. Dennis in Bunyangabo district. Did you pick that one? Okay. Thank you so much.
It is too philosophical.
Yeah, it is indeed so philosophical. I did not get it clearly, but thank you so much for those messages. Someone here says, good morning, moderator. Can't all these activists convince our press government, okay, to reduce on 81 idle ministers to 40 and these snowing MPs to 250? We are sick. Bwire David, Maradona na Mayingo. I read the message as it comes in.
That's a good proposal, no doubt.
Okay, react, please.
That's a good proposal. I find our National Assembly, the parliament, too huge for the taxpayer. I agree with the caller, the one who has just sent in the message. And I think in the exhibition, the parliamentary exhibition related with corruption and that kind of stuff, one of the arguments, and even the early arguments, have always been that we can have a much smaller parliament and probably much smaller cabinet. Because with the increase in numbers of parliament or parliamentarians, and also a bloated cabinet, you have got extra money that is required to make those institutions and the added institutions and the number of personnel who are working there. To be able to function, there has got to be extra resources, which is a burden on the taxpayer. But how do we get there? How we get there takes what my colleagues here have always talked about since we started the show. The discipline, the political discipline and political decisiveness. That you have got the political will to say, let this be done. And this is what our departed, may his soul rest in eternal peace, Magufuli, did.
Doesn't political will extend to decisions?
Absolutely,
does it stop in only words?
No. Does it stop only in words? You see, when you find running the government, especially in the case of Uganda, the way it is now, I can see where our president is coming from. And probably I may not be able to see where he's going, but I can see where he's coming from. And where he's coming from is he's coming from very muddy waters. He has been navigating very muddy waters. Running a government in Uganda now as it is, and probably doing it a little bit different from how he is doing it, is what we have all, by consensus, I believe by now, arrived at, that in the evening of your political career, you need to take certain political decisions. I will go by the words of the departed senior comrade Sankara. He said we have a choice. As a leadership, we have a choice to celebrate with champagne here in the State Lodge, or to provide clean water to everybody and make education accessible to everybody in our country. There is a choice here in Uganda.
Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader.
Thank you so much. There is, you see, I told you you are a member of the Pan-African movement, just because you hide here. But we are going to recapture you and take you back. So, at the risk of sounding controversial, and allow me the latitude of stepping this debate a little bit high. The corruption may actually not necessarily be bad. If anybody hears that, you will say, what has Comrade Rugarama said? Corruption may not necessarily be bad depending on the form of corruption and what you do, what you purpose to achieve with that corruption. I will tell you,
Quickly.
the biggest corrupt country here is our very well-known United States of America. How do they do it? They use multinationals. I will give you an authority. When you go through the celebrated former CIA member, Parkinson's, in his book, The Tales of the Economic Hitman, you will get the story that the so-called World Bank, all these Bretton Woods institutions of IMF and the World Bank are all conduits of extending corrupt tendencies to other jurisdictions, other members who do not necessarily have power within the World Bank. And how do they do it? They institute policies and they extend them to you, so that they even force member countries to take certain laws for different purposes altogether from what the national plan is for that particular country. And that is a form of corruption. But they do it at a level for the benefit of America, so that whatever comes from all their corrupt tendencies come back to America. And the Americans will be happy with that. But in other jurisdictions, the problem we have is that we have got corrupt people for purposes of, somebody talked about aggrandizement, and
Aggrandizement.
yes, self-aggrandizement, and for only selfish benefit, that you cheat the money that is supposed to be refurbishing a referral hospital, you cheat. They take the money as an individual.
People eat roads here.
The roads, exactly. Poor quality roads, narrow sizes, and in the process, you harm the people who are supposed to be benefiting from. So the corruption becomes very visible and makes people very angry.
There is something you did not agree to when it was raised here.
Yes.
When Dr. Gerard spoke about broadening the issue of corruption and talking about nepotism, that it's another form that should be looked into before, as we progress in this fight against.
I heard my brother Gerard very well, and in principle I agree with him. But in the case of Uganda, politically speaking, contextually, in the case of Uganda as it is now, I can assure you that is textbook information.
Sure.
That's academic. There is, if for instance,
there is no proof.
Let me give you my prediction. If His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni attempted to make those reforms, to make sure
as many people
and
from different parts of the country in heading the institutions and agencies of government.
Look here. He goes in the different institutions, grabs those corrupt people, even extending. You remember when there was an attempt by our auntie Beth Kamya to have the army account. You remember the letter that came from the president?
Yeah.
That is the summary of what I would have said.
Thank you. We get you. Winnie, we are actually remaining with only 15 minutes. Good morning, Mr. Apollo. I don't expect anything from Kyankwanzi. Nice weekend. Send greetings to Dr. Masaba Senior, Dentist Nick Sugu. I'm James Nimbali. Thank you too. Winnie, as now we conclude.
As we conclude,
you've heard from this gentleman now broadening this issue, but still hopeful that something may come out of Kyankwanzi. Can we see? Okay, you can start from where you want, because it's a fine
I'll start from one of the persons who said I should appreciate the fight for corruption. Maybe, and again he contradicted himself and said, but I agree with her when she says that how they are doing it is not right. And I'll start from there. I do appreciate the fight for corruption. That is why I even add a voice in the fight for corruption. But, like how he has said, I don't appreciate the way they are doing it, the selective way of who should we take in prison, which case should we handle, which, you know, I don't agree with the selective way they're doing it, yes, but I agree with the fight of corruption. I am a citizen of Uganda, you get it? And I believe in having a Uganda where everyone is can happily live, where women can go to have access medical facilities in every region, where every child can get good education. I believe in that, yeah. So, but the good thing when he was ending, I liked it that when he was ending, he really answered himself. And like how I was starting, are we expecting something good coming from?
Yeah.
Yes, but something good on paper.
Not in practice.
Not in practice. If the president is not ready.
Is it you who raised the issue of the decision of the president? I mean, appointing some people who have questionable character and creating more bodies to fight corruption. Can you react to that also? It
was Gerard, but I can. Me, how I was bringing it was, if the president is not ready to check in into like who are the people I've appointed. Yeah, I remember I also hit on it. Who are the people I've appointed? If I'm talking about democracy, can it be democracy? Yes, if not just selective. This is the democracy I want. This is the democracy NRM fought for, is the one I want. So we will achieve that. Uganda is one of the countries that has good policies.
On paper?
On paper. When you look at the different projects this government has brought, on paper, they are really good. But our problem is the implementation. Yes, we expect positive things to come from the retreat, and the president might even say we might have they call it a presidential what address after the retreat, and the things he's going to tell us are going to be very beautiful. They're going to be very good. They might even implement them between now and 2026. Yes, because my brother here say, where is the will? The will even comes with the agenda. What is the agenda? We all don't know, everyone who is seated in that room, where the agenda is. That is why I told you in the beginning that the problem is we have is the leaders have their own agenda, their attitude, their own actions they come with on table. So those are the people there. But until the president is ready, he's also ready to speak truth to a problem of Uganda and say, I can't mention names, but he knows the names. He knows the people that have really damaged this country. If he's ready to separate those people too, so do you know what? Step away, first step out. If he gets that courage, what is coming out, because when you read, when you see, and if you heard what they said, what he said, and what they said they're going to talk about, they are the issues. But again, how is it going to be done? It is for who? Who are they even targeting? Until the president is ready to say that, if it's Winfred, please Winfred, first step back.
Thank you.
Like now we have just like now if the president came out and said, the problem of Uganda now, right now, because now Parliament, one thing when you're talking about Parliament, it's corruption, labeling it. If the executive came out and directed Anita and said, Speaker, please first step aside. Yes, just I'm giving an example. We have very many ministers that have been, their names have been mentioned in issues of corruption. If he comes out of Kyankwanzi and says, and names them and says first step, and they do investigation, it will be a plus. But not until we leave people in Spain. They are the same people to implement what is coming out of the Kyankwanzi, the same people who have made the Ugandans bleed, their hearts bleed, made this country so rotten like this. They are just going to find just being strategic.
Okay. Well, Winnie continues to say that this retreat is a tactical move looking at 2026. Hello, The Dialogue. Thanks for the show. I think the current problem government is facing today is fatigue. But President Museveni adopts and adapts to any situation. He is alive to society transformation. Remember, he is the only president I have had lecture about society metamorphosis. He doesn't understand and estimate anything. So the Kenyan issue is not just a small thing to him, especially being Ruto's first term. Osbert Mugisha in Utungo. Thank you so much, our viewers. I think now we have to close the show with final comments from our panelists here. Comrade Rugarama, just 1.5 minutes. Your parting shot on this show, but what we did not talk about is a contrast I see here. We are talking about corruption in Kyankwanzi, but when somebody talks about corruption, you are sent to jail. We have some people who are in jail because of speaking against corruption. Your final comment.
I take cognizance of the fact that what is unfolding in Kenya, although is not for the very first time, because Kenya, politically speaking, has been undergoing certain levels of political uneasiness for a very long time. But in relationship to what Ugandans can learn from what is taking place in Kenya, I think our president has always had his ears on the ground. And I'm very sure that he has already picked very good intelligence reports, even away from Uganda. What is of great interest for us in this particular debate is that we have got a situation where corruption, unfortunately, has been one of the areas that NRM has not yet fixed, contrary to other areas. And I want to conclude by saying that the 10 out of the 10-point programs, which was actually extended to 15-point programs, the issue of peace and security, relatively speaking, NRM has scored considerably well. The rest are just pockets here and there. When we finally dealt a blow with
so you
the insurgencies,
at around 10% score.
Of the 15, he's saying only one.
No, I didn't have time to go through all those, but there are quite a number of areas where NRM has scored, but I think corruption is not one of them. We are doing badly there.
Thank you. Madam Winnie, your final comment?
My final comment, like how I started, Uganda's problem right now around corruption needs a stakeholders approach because it brings a diverse perspective. For now, the government, if it can't listen, yes, and everyone who comes out to speak about democracy, not only government, but even the leaders we have in this position, anyone who comes to talk about corruption, anyone who comes to talk about democracy is either put in prison. We are still behind, and the president needs to first. He needs to accept that. For me to move on with the agenda, a beautiful agenda I have, the 10 points program, either 15 now, I have to have a mouth-first approach. Involve even if it's involving opposition in a democrat and like in a good way. So away from that, Kyankwanzi, they will still be going to Kyankwanzi, spend taxpayers' money. If they are the only one who can't even criticize themselves, they are the ones speaking, giving themselves answers, solution. No, we are still.
Thank you. Thank you, Winnie. You continue to propose a national dialogue on corruption involving civil society organizations, opposition, politicians, NRM, and
the public
members of the private sector.
And the government. Yes, I propose that they should, if they are going to, they can't take the whole, they can't take us all, but they can choose. They can see if it's civil society, which organization are working around corruption, which organization are working around human rights. Let's pick some of them, and then in community leaders, which basing on the topic the government is going to talk about. If it's around health, can we look for within those other sectors, private sector, which private sector is working around health, it would help.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Gerard, your final.
Just two things briefly. The first one, I insist that nepotism is strong and playing a role in this country. We all see it, it is there, and if I'm given an opportunity, I will read, but just to reflect.
Rugalama says there is no practical evidence.
It is there, it is visible. It is very visible.
There was another similar argument in URA. It was debunked. But anyway, it's okay.
This one is easier to see than the one in URA. And even in URA, nobody verified that list to see whether it was authentic or not. It might have been for the media. But the fact is that it is there, we see it. Why do hundreds of people, musicians and others keep on lining in Gulu at General Salim Saleh's place? Or investors who come, instead of going to Ghana investment, they have to go and line in Gulu. Why? That's just one example. Yes, and then the last one, the president has posted on Twitter that the victims of corruption should take the lead. And these are the citizens of Uganda. So you, the citizens of Uganda, the president of Uganda, is encouraging you to take the lead to fight the corrupt. The thieves, those who are recruiting wrong people.
They are being arrested and jailed. Those who take that civil
they don't have the prison to jail everyone. At some point, they will have to stop.
So what is Dr. Wanzara saying? He's calling for the operation to do what?
They should follow what is taking place in local governments, how they are recruiting, how district service commissions are recruiting people. They should monitor. If people say this one is suspected corrupt, don't allow him in charge to come and bring stolen money. Those are the actions you need to do.
Actually, the president talked about people selling jobs in service commissions.
Yes, he's aware of all this.
That may even be small. He himself talked about people
Viewers, our
money
time
to
is
see
up.
him.
We must thank you so much for being part of the event. Thank you so much, my panel. Dr. Gerard Wanzara, thank you so much. And I look forward to having you again on Saturday. Winnie, it's a pleasure having you today.
Thank you too.
Thank you so much, Comrade Rugalama. Your views, though the topic was a bit thorny from your side. And our viewers, thank you so much for the comments and observations. More importantly, thank you so much for being our good audience out there. The production team, thank you so much. Until we meet next Saturday, the dialogue is out now. Good afternoon. God bless you. God bless you.